You've narrowed down your possible topics and titles, and you've come up with a subject that you're passionate about and are sure you can mesmerize an audience for an hour or more talking about it. By the way, an hour is fairly standard length for a keynote speech. So how do you go about creating your speech? Obviously, there's not one answer to that since every topic and person is different, but I'm going to share some hints and tips in hopes that something will resonate with you in your unique situation and put you on the fast track. Some people like to be very structured and organized from the start, creating a numbered outline and building their big speech brick by carefully measured brick. That's fine if it works for you. But for me, that's much too inhibiting. I don't mean you don't need discipline and focus. You do, but I've got only one rule that I think everyone should follow when they start writing a speech. You should definitely start by writing out the 2 or 3 major objectives of your speech. That is, the most important points or messages or even emotions you want your audience to take away and apply to their personal lives or their work habits or whatever it is you most want to influence. A good way to arrive at that is to write at the top of page 1, how do I want to change the people who hear me speak? If you really connect with them, you're going to change the way they think or feel about something that's important to them. So write it down. This is how I want to change their minds and hearts. I want them to stop doing this and start doing that. I want them to stop thinking in those terms about something and start thinking instead like this. I want them to be inspired and motivated to go out there and start doing this. Okay, now you've got a target to aim at, so work backwards and design a message that accomplishes that objective. And here's where I think you stop taking careful baby steps and just go crazy, getting ideas down. Paint with very broad strokes. Don't worry about mistakes. Slop ideas all over your notebook or computer file or folder. Jot down anything that comes to mind. The personal stories you want to tell, the inspiring stories from great achievers that have influenced you, everything you can think of. Don't worry about the proper order. Just get it all out. You might think, what was that thing that Albert Einstein said that I loved? Look it up. In the information age, it's probably, a 5-second Google search away. Look it up, write it down, throw it in the pile. Off-the-wall ideas, statistics, funny stories, pertinent research, entertaining anecdotes from your own life or others. Put it all in the pile. If it helps in some way to get you to your point in an interesting and entertaining way, it serves a purpose. I strongly suspect, by the way, that you reacted to that list I just recited in one of 2 ways. You winced either at the words statistics or funny stories. One type of person might say, my topic is too serious for funny stories, and I'm not a comedian anyway. There's no room for foolishness in my presentation. If you're another type, you might say, statistics? No way, Jose. My message is about people, not numbers. Well, although there are as many styles and techniques as there are topics and speakers, there are a couple of truths that are pretty much universal. One that I think is absolutely undeniable. Stories beat statistics every time, and I don't mean that you have to be funny, but once upon a time has worked for 10,000 years to perk up ears because people love a story. Good example. I heard about a speaker who nearly ruined his career with one line. He was booked at a huge convention down in Orlando, 3,000 people, and naturally you want to make a fantastic impression from the get-go. So this poor guy was introduced, and he walks on stage, and would you believe that there's no payoff to that story? Sorry, I wanted to make a point. Got your attention, didn't I? You wanted to know what he said, how it turned out, what happened to him, and you're probably a little miffed that I didn't pay it off. Stories about real people get people's attention immediately because, yes, they're dying to know what happened. Thomas Edison had been working on one of his most famous inventions for years, hadn't found the missing part of the puzzle that would make it work. One day, a young reporter said, Mr. Edison, don't you get discouraged by all these failures? Edison said, failures? Son, I don't have failures. I'll have you know that in only 3 years, I have discovered more than 9,000 ways a light bulb won't work. The story makes the point very well and has a little punchline at the end to put a bow on the package. But I rewrote and rehearsed that story a dozen times before I performed it on stage, which is essential. Do not make a notation, tell the Edison story here, and then never think about it again until you're on stage. You notice that I included a photo of Edison during the story, and I'll bet you appreciated it. People love images, and they can be an extremely effective part of your presentation. If nothing else, they give them something other than you to look at for a little variety. I have a whole section on the proper and improper uses of PowerPoint or keynote presentations, so be sure to study it before you start piling up a lot of images. Another undeniable truth: you can't fake content. Whatever your area of expertise, your goal is to transform the people in that room so that when they walk out, they have more knowledge, are more motivated, inspired, or have tools they didn't have before they heard your message. That's a pretty serious responsibility. And the only way to ensure that you meet it is to create a speech that is chock full of good stuff that they didn't know or hadn't seen already. If you survived a harrowing ordeal that was in all the headlines and reported on the evening news, you can pretty much just tell your story and at the end say, never give up, and you'll get booked to speak a lot. Speak. For the rest of it, it means work, research, writing, interviewing, studying, whatever it takes to serve up a feast that they're hungry for. We're fortunate to live in the golden age of information where a massive percentage of the world's knowledge is literally at our fingertips. If you take full advantage of what the World Wide Web has to offer, you'll find that it's a rich and valuable resource. What it doesn't have, of course, is your unique experience and insight, which is the engine that's going to drive your presentation. Anybody can spout facts and serve up pithy quotations from famous people, but only one person in the world can present it in your unique perspective with your unique voice, your unique trove of experience. Keep that in mind as you craft your speech. Try to stay true to your voice so your presentation will be truly unique. The more wow moments you have, the better. As in, wow, I didn't know that. Or wow, I have to remember that one to tell my colleagues. Or just, wow, this speaker is fun. At this point, a constructive exercise would be to time each individual element. You could do it mathematically, but I'd strongly recommend that you actually say the words very much like you intend to perform it. Why? Because you'll be amazed at how many tongue twisters and little improvements you'll find if you do it aloud. If you're like most speakers, you'll actually create your speech in 3 major phases. First, you'll compile all the elements in written form and edit and add things and cut things until you've got what you think is a pretty polished presentation. Next, you'll start rehearsing it verbally. And believe me, this phase can be a very valuable creative exercise because you'll be amazed at how many little aha moments you'll have when you find a better word or think of a way to make a story more effective or even think of a better story. The third phase of creating your speech is letting your audience polish it for you. It's very important to observe what kind of response you're getting from the audience so you can toss or improve the parts that aren't working and emphasize the ones that are. And that brings us to the performance skills you'll need to knock them dead. I know that went awfully fast, but if you want a lot more information on the same topic, then all you have to do is go to fasttrackprospeaking.com and you'll see where you can get a ton of information on that and all kinds of other topics about putting you on the fast track to professional speaking. Thanks for stopping by.